Hello, y'all. Welcome to the show. This is Basketball by Association. My name is Arky. That is Joel. Joel, happy All-Star Weekend post to you. Hope you celebrated respectfully and with those who celebrate. Hello.
Hi. Thanks for the wonderful exposition to get us started. We'll talk about whether All-Star break was something we could celebrate or not. Karl Anthony Towns wins the 3-point competition, so as a Wolves fan, that's great. Steph Curry put on a show. We'll get to all that. I think I'm even more excited to look forward to the second half of the NBA season, which I know we're going to do a little bit. We're going to revisit some of our picks and predictions from the beginning of the year and get a chance to take a series of massive mulligans on some of those things. And before we get started, this is episode 96, Arky Shea, and rather than subject us to naming this episode after Don Ray, no respect to the Tri-Cities Blackhawks player from 1950 who wore number 96, or Meta World Peace who wore it for a single season with the Houston Rockets in 2009. Meta World Peace, we gave you an episode already. What more do you want from us? Instead, Arky Shea, we get to name this after a player who very much embodies the zeitgeist of the mid-90s NBA cartoon era, the jerseys, the culture that hooked a lot of us 90s kids, yourself, myself included, on the game. He was one of those guys that, man, did the league want him to succeed, because not only was he a new face and a unique story, but he was a new face in a brand new franchise north of the border. And in fact, he was Rookie of the Year in 95-96. No, it is not your guy, Marcus Camby, who later went on from the Raps to the Knicks. So I got to rule that one out for you. It is one of the other young up-and-comers from the Toronto Raptors. Do you want to take a guess as to who we get to name this episode after? When I give away his nickname as the next clue, that's going to be too much. That'll be too far.
Okay, Rookie of the Year, 95-96.
For the Toronto Raptors. And if you picture Marcus Camby, picture the exact opposite of Marcus Camby. That would be another small clue.
Okay. All right, hold on. The opposite of Marcus Camby.
Mm-hmm. Another small clue.
Okay, I think who was.
Here's your third and final.
No. Okay,
clue.
no. Okay,
okay.
No, maybe.
I mean, dead air is just. It's a wonderful aphrodisiac for everybody.
I'm thinking we're not live radio here. People can get their commercials elsewhere. They got us. They got me trying to figure out who the 95-96 Rookie of the Year was. Toronto. Who? Small clue. Opposite Marcus Camby. Toronto. Fudge. Small. Minnie Mouse. Mighty Mouse, right? Damon Stoudemire.
There you go.
Yes.
It's the Damon Stoudemire episode. Congratulations. Woo! You win nothing but marginal respect. Yes, 5'10". Damon Stoudemire was the Rookie of the Year in 95-96. When he averaged
5'10's tiny compared to
very, very respectable 19 points, 9 assists, and a steal and a half per game at the age of 22. In fact, we most closely associate Damon Stoudemire with the Toronto Raptors, but he actually only played 2.5 seasons there, and he did average.
I see him as a Portland guy. That's how I vision him. I don't see him as a Toronto. So that's what threw me off. I just sort of was thinking Portland the whole time.
Well, the 2.5 seasons in Toronto were his best, because his sophomore season averaged 20 points, nearly 9 assists a game, and was at 17 points a game before getting traded in 97-98 to the Blazers.
How long was he in Portland?
He was in Portland, you're right, much longer, 8 seasons.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
but by the time he got to Portland, he's part of that ensemble cast with Arvydas Sabonis, and Scottie Pippen is there, a very young Rasheed Wallace. You know, a lot of different, very well-known players kind of traveling through the Blazers during that early era, and that's the Blazers, of course. You know, fighting the Lakers in the early 2000s. But Stoudemire was no longer like one of those faces of the league who was on Slam magazine all the time. And, you know, I just remember those first couple years when he was in Toronto and the league was really trying to get that franchise to stick. You think of the cartoon Raptor jersey that's aimed at kids. He's on NBA Inside Stuff like all the time with Kevin Garnett and, you know, some of the Grant Hill, some of the guys at the league were really trying to push as the next face. And when that trade happened to Portland, yeah, he declines as a player. He's part of that ensemble cast. Solid career, but he was out of the league by age 34. You know,
how far did he go down after Toronto?
So
let's go with
he's a 12, 13 point per game scorer
for
the rest of his time
like
in Portland.
18, 19, right? Yeah. So,
yeah, and then goes to Memphis for a couple of seasons where he's at 11 points per game his first year there, and down to 7.5 the second. And then does a half season in Memphis. It looks like there's some time lost to injury in there. A half season in Memphis and a half season with the Spurs, and he's out of the league in 2008.
You know, there is an interesting, I think, interesting sort of connection here for Damon Stoudemire. He was there. He got there before the mega explosion of contracts. Like he was drafted before, like we just went into just the freaking just stupid numbers.
Yeah, there were a few guys. I mean, Garnett and Juwan Howard were getting their bag at that point, but it wasn't.
Oh, we're not. We're in the between where like you had to be an upper guy to get that.
It was the exception.
Before it became like, oh hey, you've averaged 16. That's good for 5 and 210 or something like that. It feels like, oh, that would be like 40 million. So maybe that's a little much. So I was looking up how much he made in his career. Do you want to take a guess at what is estimated his career earnings in the NBA were? Because I think this is sort of interesting.
Let's go 58 million.
So it's according to Bleacher Report, he made $99.6 million.
All right.
And like he was at the sort of the tail end of like, hey, pretty good beginning. Rookie year, 95, 96, 97.
Oh, yeah, I see on Basketball Reference. He's got a contract in there of double-digit millions. That would have been with the Blazers when he re-signs there. He's got a 5-year, looks like $55 million, $60 million contract in there.
Yeah, and then you sort of got into sort of as more money came into the NBA, a lot more TV money came into the NBA from Turner and et cetera, that you started to get more and more of these inflated contracts. So, I mean, it's weird to think about like what Patrick Ewing was making at one point, like which is paltry compared to like what Giannis is going to be making this year.
Interestingly enough, and we don't need to spend any more time on Mighty Mouse, even though I did really like the guy during that era. He's from Portland, Oregon. So going back to the Blazers was a homecoming deal, and I did not know that.
I did not either. All right, so Damon Stoudemire, this is your episode.
Yeah, never made an all-star team, was rookie of the year, and made the all-rookie team, and that was it. So talk about kind of an early starter, and then was just a solid starter after that.
Yeah, not bad to be able to escape that with the $100 million on the gross earnings. So, all right, Joel. So the NBA All-Star weekend was this weekend, and unless you're DJ Khaled, who was enjoying his time there, a lot of things sort of kind of happened. The All-Star weekend's not for me. Like I don't get a lot of enjoyment out of this. We've talked about this before. Like the middle of the season part, I think sort of takes it away from me. Just because like it turned into, especially guys are. You're putting on a show for the fans, and that's kind of what it's supposed to be. Like it's supposed to be Ja Morant from half court doing 360 dunks. Like, even though that's extra from what I'm expecting, from him to be doing. But that's kind of what it is. Steph Curry going from the logo, turning around as soon as he shoots, the kind of thing.
Yeah.
For me, I didn't find a lot of enjoyment out of it. I have one story I just want to ask you a small question about at the end of this, and then we can get into the second half of the season. But I want to ask you first: is there any? What did you find interesting, compelling? Did you enjoy about the All-Star Weekend? Because for me, this weekend's a bit of a meh overall.
I at first did not like the change in the skills competition, and then when it got going, I was like, oh, we could do this for a few years, where you have the host team field 3 of their young guys, and you've got, you know, some of the rookies kind of being forced to play in it, like the top rookies together. That's a good idea. To have the Antetokounmpo brothers, yeah, that was an absolute gimmick, but I was kind of there for that. Giannis has competed in the skills competition before, so for him to bring, you know, his brothers along, I was actually okay with that. And I would be fine with a third gimmicky type of team. You know, they've used WNBA All-Stars before. They've used former players before. I'm cool with mixing it up and keeping that going. 3-point competition, I think, stands as it is. It was cool to see a Timberwolf win it, especially, you know, being that it's a 7-footer and a big man. And the last time a guy like that won, a big man won, it was Kevin Love from the Timberwolves. So there was a little cool continuity there for me. Of course, the dunk competition just was a snoozer for everybody. And here's how we're going to fix the dunk competition, Arky Shea.
Oh, you've come prepared with a solution for it. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. We're going to get rid of it. And instead of having the dunk competition, we are going to allow fans to vote on the dunk winner from the All-Star game itself, because the dunks, the in-game dunks during the All-Star game were a lot of fun. There's a lot of little Instagram moments on there and Twitter moments on there and the highlights from that sort of package. And they don't get to redo it again. So you biff that dunk, you're just not in consideration for dunk of the game. But keep it as a live thing going on during the broadcast. People are voting. So a new dunk is going to come in and people are going to rush to their phones. Oh, that's got to be the one. That's got to be it. The commentators, I mean, you can have a sideline reporter assigned just to be tracking the numbers of who's got it. Maybe at halftime, you alert the players like who's leading. So somebody's going to try to go out and one-up each other. But it's more challenging. It's more impressive. Even if the dunk on a technical level is not as difficult, are we both in agreement that the in-game dunks ultimately are more impressive, even if the defender is only playing 10% defense?
Well, to be fair, it was like 12%. Okay, you're being a little like
sure,
dismissive.
But you get the lobs.
You're being
at least
super
get a body
hot-takey.
or two in there, a hand pretending they wanted
John
to go
Morant
block
with
it.
360, like with the lob from half court. That's a hell
Rudy
of a lot better.
Gobert did a 360, down the lane too. Like, come on, man.
I mean, to be fair, Rudy Gobert can reach up and touch the rim. Let's be
fair enough, but I didn't figure Rudy Gobert could stay in the air long enough to do a full twirl, and he did it. And you get guys like Anthony Edwards who have been phenomenal in-game dunkers saying, yeah, I'm not going to do the dunk competition because in-game dunking's where it's at. And I think there is the unspoken thing that, like, pretty much only the scrubs are going to go to the dunk competition. You're not going to have the top line guys doing it. Let me say this. Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon
2016
took something that was on life support and gave it a couple more years left to live. They performed.
That was the worst thing they could have done, to be honest with you.
They performed emergency surgery on something that was dead and dying, and they gave us a couple more years, and kudos to them. But I don't foresee somebody else coming down the pike who, no matter how good of a dunker they are, who's going to do things that we have not seen before. And so let's take the competition and let's evolve it. Let's merge it into the All-Star game, which continues to really innovate and try different things. And we can argue whether it's making it better or not, but kudos to at least having like a new wrinkle every year, every 2 years. Let's continue to innovate there and make sure that that's the product people are seeing. We want to see the best players throwing down the dunks. We don't, without any disrespect to Obi Toppin and Juan Toscano Anderson, who we even named an episode after last week. Mm-hmm. Those are not the guys that we want to like focus our attention on when it comes to the dunks.
All right, let me just tell you this. First of all, I hate the idea for a vote. I don't think that's any fun. As the replacement only, though. So I agree. Like there is more. The show has turned into what happens on Sunday night in the game when it's 155, 148. Kind of like that turns into what the show actually is and where people want to do the dunk. And by the way, it's more exciting to have dunks with dudes around that you're posterizing and you can have people lob it to you in the middle of game action. It's more natural too for the guys. You can imagine they're just running up and down the court. They get some momentum. They can grapple up, all that good stuff. But
can you imagine if they had like a big screen on one end of the arena that was tracking the points of who was leading the dunk?
Like, I think that's good for like us socially to a degree, right? But I think if you're the NBA, you can't end the night on a 3-point contest. You have to keep the dunk contest because they haven't come up with anything better. And the dunk is really supposed to be like an exclamation point in the game. So here's the only thing I can think of to make it work. Was actually an idea and a half.
Okay, I'll allow it.
You brought this out. This is not even something I've been thinking about, but I've been thinking about this for years. You have to force some stars to do it. Like you can't. God bless Obi Toppin. God bless that kid.
He can dunk. I mean, no one's discounting the fact that he is a very good in-game dunker.
They suck, and there's not going to be a ton of new ones. But what brings the eyeballs is, what can Giannis do? What can LeBron do? What can if you want like Zach LaVine to come back? Like, we need stars. Like that's a star power type of event. And forgive me for saying this, but those two guys that we're talking about from 2016 were not stars then. They were not stars in 2016, especially like they are now. So, like you've talked about watering down.
They were both. I mean, they were both lottery picks, though.
They're fine. They're fine players. They were fine players early in their career. All right, I have no problem with them being in the contest. It's just I think you have to mix up the young guys that people might want to see, and you have to. You can't go into that without going through the Rolodex and finding one or two guys that people really desperately want to see. Like that's just
you can have one event. Maybe two lesser known guys as like the dark horses, the challengers to the big names. But
you could have like a couple of the rookies, or maybe someone who's been hot lately, or this season kind of thing. Like
I want to see Derek Jones Jr. in the mix, for example, because he's a past winner. I'd be fine seeing him in the mix as like the fourth guy against three all-stars. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like in wrestling, it's called getting the rub, right? Like you have a big star and then a lesser star, and then because they're next to each other and competing against each other, it lifts the smaller star into a different state than he was before. So you're lifting the other star while say, hey, he deserves to be in this competition with, whoever you decide the leaper is you want to. But you have to have somebody, like even if there's contract,
unless you get that written into the next CBA, though, it's not happening because the league has no leverage over their stars. I mean, this goes into the James Harden and player empowerment and Kyrie Irving and all that bigger picture. Like you're not going to get them unless you write it into the contract and force them. And good luck getting the Players Association to sign off on that.
I'm wish listing this here, but I'm trying to Obi Toppin could have done anything in the world. He could have done backflip 360s. It's not going to rejuvenate the contest because so many of these dunks have been done. And the athleticism of these guys makes things look so easy. Like,
can we also add a fifth challenger who is not an NBA player whatsoever and give them an 8-foot hoop? And allow them, I don't care if it's like Kevin Hart. I don't care if it's The Rock. I don't care if it's DJ Khaled. Let's get some other guy as the fifth challenger. They've got an 8-foot hoop. They're on the opposite end of the court, and they get to throw in a couple of their Nerf dunks. Like, I'm fine with giving that a shot for 1 year.
I think you need star power a little bit. When it's if the slam dunk contest was like the first event of the night, okay, I get it.
But maybe we should stop leaving it till the end. Maybe it's just, I mean, you pointed that out.
How do you put that back into the bag at this point? Like it's like
because you have to, because the 3-point competition is the ultimate event of that night and has been for a couple of years. I mean, ever since the Steph Curry revolution, it's been building towards that, and it just flat out is at this point. And that's why I feel you could get rid of it completely and roll it into the All-Star game. You could revamp the entire weekend, or you put it as a leadoff event and you end on the 3-point competition, or you come up with something else that works in that slot. Like I do think we're married to a nostalgia, and I know that they've tried in the past to get rid of it, and then there was a lot of groundswell to bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that, but let's stop putting it in prime time when it's a dead franchise at this point. Like, it just is.
Yeah, and listen, mad respect to 2016, and I think that was in Toronto or something where
and MJ and Dominique and Spud Webb and Vince and all the ones that made it fun.
And yeah, like you could say something has outlived its usefulness the way it is, unless you make a change. And I don't know what incentives Adam Silver would have to be. Like maybe you go to who is someone you would want to see dunk right now that you would call a star? Would DeMar DeRozan, who's 35 years old?
No,
like, give me somebody you would want to see.
I want Ja Morant.
Okay, let's say Ja Morant, $10 million. Do it.
Mm-hmm.
Do it. You don't have to win
Anthony.
do it.
I want Anthony Edwards as the young guy because of the
Anthony Edwards. Here's $5 million. Go do it.
Yep, I want probably Giannis. You know, because you got
Giannis,
an MVP level guy. Yep, an MVP level guy, and then I'll take the dark horse, challenger. Whether that's
this is where you could be Hamidou Diallo, or like this is where you could have put a Derek. Like this is where you could have put those guys.
Yeah, and then that guy comes in, and the 3 players ahead of him are way above his league. But you've got the young all-star, you've got the MVP caliber guy, you've got the rookie of the year type of candidate. Those 3, and then you've got the role player, and then way down on the other end, you got Kevin Hart with a Nerf hoop, and in his case, it's like a 6-foot hoop. But we're gonna let him dunk too and just dork around during it.
It's so mean because he's gonna need a trampoline to get to the 6-foot hoop. I say as someone who's not extremely tall myself either. Okay, so I have one. Was that we fixed the dunk contest? Just listen to me.
And I mean,
if come up with ideas.
They're going to take my voting idea and put it in the All-Star game. You've added your new wrinkle for the 2023 All-Star game as well, and you don't need to come up with something new as far as like the scoring of the quarters go and all that. And
Buffalo Nickel, if you could tell me where the 2023 NBA All-Star game is at.
You
didn't know it was in Cleveland till like probably yesterday, did you?
Well, yeah, a couple days ago.
I'll give you a hint. It's another exciting city.
Buffalo, New York.
A current NBA city.
Is it in? It was just in Charlotte. It's been in New Orleans recently. They're not going out to Salt Lake City, are they?
That's where it's at. Salt Lake.
Is it really?
2023, yeah.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with the city, just super exciting. That's all.
Yeah.
No,
it's not. I've lived there personally. It is not. It's beautiful, but not exciting.
Yeah, listen, that's the kind of place where basketball players and celebrities want to go to hang out and stare at the mountains. That's on. Breathe the air. That's what the thing is. All right. Joel, you have anything that stood out? Because there's one. I'll tell you this.
Let's move on from the All-Star break.
Well, I did have one question out of it, but I also want to say, like the 75th anniversary thing where they rolled out where halftime was like 2 hours, where they rolled out every single person on that list. I thought that was kind of neat. But like, you know what? So I remember the 50-year.
So do I.
The 50-year one. And I don't remember it super well. I had to go back and like sort of like look up some of this.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember like in that one, like the difference for me was like how everyone was there. And like this one, like a quarter of them, it was kind of sad that they passed away. And you're like, oh man, like that's right. There's no more George Mikan and like just
Wilt isn't there, and
But I did think that was kind of sort of cool to see them sort of circle around and sort of come out to get kind of the.
Mm-hmm.
I did like Dennis Rodman really hating to wear a blazer. That was pretty solid. He basically took it off immediately after, like a cap being put, like a shirt being put on a cat. He was just like, "What is this?" And like he had like a sweatshirt on after. But I thought it was interesting, like Michael Jordan and sort of seeing his sort of interacting with some of the players. Like he really loved up. I don't know if you saw the socially. Luka Doncic when he was getting off the court, like, which I thought was kind of cool. And then
Mhm.
Karl Anthony Towns, your guy, he started to come up to say hi, and then Jordan was like, "Okay, bye, guys." It's like a weird, like, oh, interesting. I see this guy,
Mhm.
but this guy, nah, that's not my speed.
Probably depends on who's signed by Nike and who's not.
That would be, oh man, can you imagine if that's what was going through his head? Like,
I
he's like,
mean,
oh, cat's
some
cat's an
sort of
Adidas
slight.
guy. I don't know.
I will say this for our listeners out there: if you're here in the audio only version, here's Spreaker, Spotify, iTunes, and if you want the video version, go to YouTube, like, share, subscribe. If you want to go down a fun rabbit hole, either on YouTube or on NBA.com itself, the NBA has done a fantastic job of the 75 stories for the different players, the video stories. So it's just a video compilation for each of them, and you get a little bit of backstory, but then you get highlights. And so if it's a guy that, maybe you grew up watching or was just during an era that you really liked, you get a chance to relive some of those things. But for me, there's so many players on this list that, I never got to see before. And so maybe I've seen like the 3 stock highlights. Every time that player gets named on a broadcast, you might get like the one highlight over and over. But to be able to go a little bit deeper down that rabbit hole, the NBA pulling stuff out of their archives, and to see those players a little bit more in action and to get a little more backstory on each of them was really cool. And I thought the league obviously put a lot of time and effort into that. So it's a fun, binge viewing experience if you're an NBA history geek.
And speaking of that, I'll be brief with this. Someone who I'm friends with on Twitter named Andrew Hammond, who's an editor, a sports editor with the Detroit Free Press, is starting his today, actually Monday, his release of the 75 greatest NBA games of all time. And he took the time to, and Joel, I don't know if you've known this, there's been more than 75 NBA games. So he's going through and breaking all those down. And sort of talking about that. So I'm excited to be seeing those as we continue. All right, Joel, the one other thing I wanted to mention, and then we'll get to actual one piece of news, especially, and then forward.
Mm-hmm.
I saw LeBron James said after the All-Star game where he sort of hit the fadeaway and talked about how it was like an homage to Michael and how it meant so much when Michael came up to him and spoke to for a few moments. He said that they hadn't had much dialogue at all in his 19, 20 years in the NBA. And he said he hopes at some point when he retires, I guess, they can have more dialogue in the future. And I know every day on social media, for some reason, no matter the time of the year, every day is a Michael versus LeBron debate. It's there's nothing new to it.
Right.
But let me ask you this. Do you think if Michael, whether or not he wanted to, just if he did, had said, "Hey, young buck, we sort of know the comparisons. I'm going to take you under my wing and sort of mentor you," and who knows if LeBron was up to it too. I assume he would be, but who knows? Do you think that if Michael had offered that or been open to that and LeBron would have done the same as far as accepting and done that we would be constantly sort of pitting these two together? And I mean, we would still compare them, but like it feels like it's literally you have to stay in one camp or you have to be in the other camp, and there's no discussion. As much as I just enjoy the game, I enjoy watching both these two play when they did and while they're playing now.
Yeah.
You have to just pick a side. Maybe if they had sort of been more intertwined, that we wouldn't feel like, hey, it's you versus me kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, you're either a Democrat or Republican, or you're a Jordan or LeBron guy, and there's no in between these days, right? You can't stand in the middle. It's eerily similar sometimes. I don't know if that would have changed things or not. It might have. It might have at least given the semblance of connection between them instead of such a great divide. Kobe was compared to Michael over and over and over because there was similarities to their game, but there was also that physical passing of the torch in a lot of ways, because they played together briefly, and Kobe spoke often about what Michael meant to him. And it wasn't until later that we found out a little bit more of the backstory about how close those two were, especially after Kobe passed. Michael came out and was like, yeah, man, we turned into really good friends and talked quite a bit, and the respect was mutual. I think timing was that Michael had just left the game when LeBron is coming in. So you never saw them together. Michael was really out of the game for a few years and away from it all, especially that side of the player thing. There was no incentive for him to go find new friends and talk to new guys and be that figurehead for the NBA, because he was out. He was moving on with his life, moving into the Jordan brand and all that sort of stuff, and eventually the Hornets. And LeBron, I think, has always very expressly said, I am my own guy. I am not patterned after anyone else, because there was always the Magic Johnson comparisons. And LeBron was one of these guys that, I don't want to say coined the cliche, but definitely leaned into it of, well, I just want to be the best LeBron that I can be. I don't want to be the next Magic. I don't want to be the next Michael. And I think he's been very respectful of the NBA greats before him. He definitely knows his history. He'll name drop those guys and their contributions and talk about all that. But he's never once been like, oh yeah, I grew up watching this guy and I wanted to be him. And, you know, I really wanted to pattern my game after that guy. So whether you call that arrogance or not, and whether that was maybe off-putting to Jordan, or it was Jordan's own arrogance of, hey, here's this new up-and-coming guy. He doesn't earn my respect until he's been in the league 10 years and has been that good. And now LeBron's gotten so big that he's a rival to Jordan's legacy. Mm-hmm. Some say so much so that Jordan had to push out that documentary a couple of years ago, you know, The Last Dance, in order to remind people how great he was, because he didn't want people to forget and all this LeBron stuff. So some of it's timing and I think unavoidable, but maybe it at least would have changed some of the perception of such a great divide between the two.
I just find that sort of interesting. And by the way, the better one is clearly Larry Bird. So, you know, like what it is at this point is what we've clearly seen. Like, you've chosen a side. It doesn't matter. They're both really, really good basketball players. And, you know, if you would like to take a minute and just enjoy them playing, that's cool too. Like, that's absolutely, you don't have to rank everybody all the time.
And there's another layer to this debate, which I was reminded of while watching the All-Star game and Steph doing his thing.
It's race. Yeah, they're both black.
Nope.
They are. You just tell me they're not black.
That's not the discussion at hand. You can have that debate about who's the greatest player ever based on individual talent and their ability to lead a team and grab championships and all that stuff. But there's that other debate about most influential player ever. And I think Steph Curry is probably going to wind up being the more influential player as far as the game itself being played than LeBron or Michael. Now, Michael, of course, put the league on the map as far as the marketability. Michael changed the game for a time in that entire defenses, you know, those 90s fist fight defenses were built to try to stop Jordan, so much so that the league, in order to protect Jordan, had to fight back against those defenses and make rule changes. LeBron has not necessarily changed the game as far as the way the rules have come out, though he certainly reintroduced the idea of like the point forward and the big guy who could do everything and play point guard, though some of that existed with Magic and the Showtime Lakers, you know, in the speed of the game. But the Denver Nuggets were doing that before too. And Shaq was very influential as far as like needing to change defensive rules against centers. Wilt did the same thing. But you can take all of those different players and the huge contributions that they had, and has any one of them influenced the game with sheer fundamental changes that trickled down not only through the rules, but the way the game was taught at all levels, the way the game was defended, the speed and pace of the game. Like, Steph Curry, in a lot of ways, despite the fact he won't make as much money as LeBron and Jordan, you know, and the marketability and all that stuff, but he also opened up the league marketability wise. I don't know if anybody will touch Steph.
Okay,
And
all right.
that's,
Listen, the
I don't know.
debate is LeBron or MJ. Stop throwing in dudes who revolutionize the game. Okay.
Yeah, but then there's Kareem and Wilt, and the old
You
guys
stop.
will go back
You
to that
stop.
and say it's
No,
not LeBron or
no,
MJ. So
no. That's right. It's Bob Cousy. Okay, that's who it is. Whatever. It's fine.
you and
Look,
your white Celtics. Anyway, let's keep going.
that's what I'm talking about. Come on. Havlicek stole the ball. That's what I'm caring about. Okay, so the newsy part before we get everything. Chris Paul is out 6 to 8 weeks with a broken thumb. Playoffs start in 7 weeks, Joel. So, real quick for the Suns, we talked about how big of a dude Chris Paul is and how he's changed the culture and changed the Phoenix Suns. 7 weeks, obviously, they're not going to drop out of the playoff race. But how big of a loss is it for the Suns ending the season without Chris Paul?
It's enough that they either lose the number 1 seed to the Warriors down the stretch here, just barely, or they hang on to it by like a game and have lost some momentum with that number 1 seed. I am still, and we'll get to the predictions in a little bit, but a little teaser here. I am still not picking the Phoenix Suns to repeat and go back to the NBA Finals, despite how good they have been. The Chris Paul stuff does not help them. They are excellent. I expect that they may reach the NBA Finals again, once or twice in this run of the next few years. I wouldn't be surprised if they did it this year, but they are not my pick. And I do think this is kind of a momentum killer. And it is one of the unfortunate things of having Chris Paul on your team. He is so good when he is there, but there is that ticking time bomb aspect of when is the injury coming? How will we have to weather it? It's the same thing the Lakers have dealt with Anthony Davis and the Pelicans did before that with Davis. It's the same thing the Sixers have dealt with Joel Embiid. It's a cost of doing business to have that superstar there. Phoenix is good enough that you're right. I don't think they're dropping into the 4th seed or anything like that, but I don't think they can keep up this ridiculous pace. It is very good for them that they traded for Aaron Holiday, because now they're gonna rotate through Holiday, campaign, and Elfrid Payton at the de facto point guard spot. Devin Booker will handle the ball a lot more. So they're not dead in the water, but they're not the number 1 seed.
The Warriors are 42-17 and 6.5 back of first.
Mm-hmm.
That's how good Phoenix has been. So
and the Warriors took their foot off the gas a little bit going into the All-Star break here. But
sure, a little
Suns
bit.
have been amazing.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But the Suns have been smoking it lately.
Mm-hmm.
For 60 games they've been smoking it. So, all right. So, RIP Suns, you're gonna fall out. That's what I say. It'd take a lot for them to fall out. What they 58, 60, 24 games, they're probably okay for now. Joe, okay, so you want to do some mulligans and predictions for the rest of the way? Because, we're 22, 25, 26 games away from the rest of the season. You wrote...
Remember that bad boy?
You did wrote things down, and you wrote them down good. Wrote them on your own piece of paper.
Yeah. 60% of the time, I'm prepared every time.
That's right. And my paperwork does not exist.
So we're going to revisit in relatively quick fashion. We won't go deep into all of these, but we will look at some of our different picks and get the chance to revise it. There doesn't have to be a ton of explanation. But at the beginning of the season, I picked, and some of these you had also gone with, but I don't remember who all of your picks were. And if you don't remember, that's fine. We can just do the revision. But I had down Nikola Jokic for MVP. Do we want to stay with that pick, or you got somebody else?
Wait, we picked that, or do you pick that?
It's down on the piece of paper. I don't know how unanimous it was, but do you like Jokic for MVP, or you got somebody else?
I like Jokic. He's putting up killer numbers. Like, his numbers are stupendous. The team and the way it's playing sort of hurts, especially since Joel Embiid's got a high-profile spot where he's been playing super great. Giannis has been up massive numbers again, and he's already got the award. He's got the love of the media anyway. Jokic may be sort of fighting from behind and underneath to be able to win this award.
Steph is in on that narrative too.
Steph Curry is going to be in on this narrative, especially with the boost he'll get coming out of the All-Star game. All eyes will be on him. So, but I'm okay with that right now. Yeah.
And the Nuggets continue to sit in 6th. So they're in the playoff field, which is amazing considering Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. have been out for most or all of the season.
I can't believe how they're piecing it together.
And both of those guys, it has been reported, are expected to return before the playoffs. Now, how much rust and how much reintegration time are going to exist, we don't know. But that could bode into a couple of other Denver Nuggets related picks that we had earlier. So you like Jokic for MVP. I think he's still in that mix. I don't know that Giannis is going to grab it because the Bucks have not been front runners. If suddenly the Sixers, who are 2.5 games back, can jump up, maybe Embiid grabs it, but there's going to be some of the Harden narrative in there if they get that momentum. So, Jokic is in it and Steph is in it, to me, as like the top two guys. And then you've got Embiid, you've got DeRozan, and you've got Giannis kind of as the rest of the field as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Basketball Reference has the NBA MVP award tracker as Jokic with a 36.3% probability to win it right now. He's first. Giannis at 25.8 and Joel Embiid 11.6. And you know that's always right.
Well, it's right enough. It's right enough that we'll go for it. The next one.
By the way, DeMar DeRozan's down to 2.3%. DeMar DeRozan's insane this season. I don't know. Like, why don't people want to? Okay, whatever.
I think it's because with DeMar, you get the phenomenal scoring stats this year, and the shooting splits are out of this world. But DeMar's never been a guy that packs like a bunch of other categories. He's solid.
Yeah, but those are the sexy numbers, right? Like
they are, but Jokic, you get the rebounds, you get the assists. Embiid, you get the rebounds, you get the blocks. Giannis, you get like a little bit of everything across the board. And Steph,
he's
you
behind
get the
Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert ain't winning this award, okay? DeMar DeRozan has a much better chance to win it.
Gobert's not, but like blocks still mean something because it's another counting category. And DeRozan, you just get the points. All of those other guys on the list have the points plus like two other categories they're a top 5 guy in. And that's where DeMar is just not going to get the respect as a mid-range shooter.
Since February 3rd, 28, 31, 45, 38, 36, 35, 38, 40, 38. Those are the points he's putting up.
I mean, he's all right. He's
just saying he's stupid.
He's slightly better than pedestrian. We'll give him that. This next one we absolutely want to take a mulligan on. I had Jalen Green from the Houston Rockets down as my Rookie of the Year pick. I figured it wouldn't be Cade Cunningham because there was going to be some injuries. That was true. Jalen Green, however, did run into some injury issues. We thought the Rockets would be able to put up a crap ton of points. Sometimes they have, but that backcourt of him and Kevin Porter Jr. has not gotten to play together all that much. And to me, it is Evan Mobley's, it's his award to lose at this point. He's got the narrative because the Cavs have been so good. He was so good right off the bat. They had to put him in the starting lineup by like game 3. He's been a huge part of them sticking in that 4th seed. When I'm looking at my predictions, I had the Cavs to finish 5th in the Central Division. And I had them finishing like second to worst in the Eastern Conference. I think I only had the Magic better than Cleveland coming into this year. Like, that's how wrong I was. And Scotty Barnes has been good in Toronto. The Raptors are sitting in 7th. There's a lot of good basketball being played there. And of course, Franz Wagner in Orlando had some narrative for a while, but I don't think anybody really wants to hand him the Rookie of the Year pick if they can help it. So to me, it's Mobley. Agree or disagree there, but I'm going to call you silly if you disagree.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'll be brief. I think I had Evan Mobley to start the season.
I think you did too.
Like, I think I loved him coming out of USC. So I think I had Evan Mobley, and he's like minus 500 right now on the betting lines to be able to win Rookie of the Year. Like, he's just been stellar.
Defensive Player of the Year, it's been Rudy Gobert 3 out of the last 4 seasons. He's the front runner in all the betting odds again. The numbers are still there. I had Giannis down as Defensive Player of the Year because I felt it was going to be a consolation prize for him not winning MVP this season because Jokic might get his back-to-back, or Steph was potentially going to get it. I don't know. Does the league want to hand it out to Rudy for the 4th time in 5 years? Giannis is the only guy who has broken that up, because I think his was like 2 seasons ago. So he'd be a repeat winner. Obviously, he's one of the face of the league guys, and the numbers, the impact are deserving. Do you see Giannis being more deserving than Rudy Gobert, who, remember, has missed some time this season. And I do think that's got to count against him, whereas Giannis has been here for most of the year.
Yeah, and I'd lean with Giannis right now too. And I mean, I'm not going to adjust that. I think I may have had Giannis to start the season too. But I'll give it with those two guys for me anyway. Like I think with you, like it was, they're so like Giannis, like Rudy Gobert is known for the defense, right? Like that's his thing. Giannis is it's just crazily underrated for how good of a defensive player he is. So I'll stick with it.
We're cool with that. The next one is a little bit hard as far as who we want as the replacement. I can just tell you it's not going to be Malik Beasley. That was my pick for sixth man of the year. I don't know who you had, but I know it wasn't Malik. He has had shooting slumps multiple times during the season, and though he's capable as a 20-point per game scorer, he's hit that now and again, but there's no chance that Malik Beasley is even in that conversation. But yeah, looking down the list of who's the next guy, like the slam dunk choice for sixth man, is kind of difficult. I don't know.
I'll give you the betting odds right now if you would like.
Yes, please.
As of 1 week ago, which is basically the last time that they played, nothing's happened. The betting odds right now minus 1,111 according to Vegas Insider is Tyler Herro out of Miami, and then the next one is Kelly Oubre for Charlotte. And then it's Kevin Love, Montrezl Harrell, and Jordan Clarkson.
So
those are long shot odds.
I mean, Kevin Love, there's going to be some narrative there because he's back. It's the first time he's been playing very well in the last like 3 seasons. I mean, he was looking absolutely lost to time. He's part of that Cavaliers team again. That's going to have that narrative for that bounce back. He has played a very critical role with that. Oubre's been nice in Charlotte. And gets a ton of minutes off that bench because they don't have a lot of depth. And now you've got Gordon Hayward hurt. So those numbers and that production goes up quite a bit. I mean, I think I'm going to take the betting odd favorite though in Hero, because how many Miami Heat are really going to get an award and a nod? And they've been sitting there, hovering around that 1 seed for a lot of this season, especially lately. And they're currently in the number 1 seed right now. So yeah, I mean, I guess I would revise it to Hero with Love in the conversation and Oubre there as well. Jordan Clarkson, I wish he would get more love than he does, but that's, playing out in Utah doesn't help.
Yeah, I think I liked Tyler Herro coming into the season, but I think I also gave some love to Patty Mills. Thought that he might be sort of more of a player, and he's, I think, plus 15,000 to win it. So
he's had to be in the starting lineup an awful lot for Brooklyn this year too.
That's sort of hurt my numbers as well.
Coach of the year, I think both had settled on Mike Malone because we both had the Nuggets playing so well that in my case, I had the Nuggets winning the West and Golden State in the 2nd seed. Now, of course, injuries hijacked some of that, but Malone was going to have that narrative. We thought that doesn't exist. Malone's done an excellent job of keeping the Nuggets afloat. If all of a sudden they go off on a tear here and get a top 2, top 3 seed, maybe the Suns fall back. I don't know if enough time exists for that and if Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. come back in time. But I think instead, to me, the slam dunk choice has to be Billy Donovan in Chicago. And that's not to take away anything from DeMar DeRozan, but for the Bulls to be ready. Otherwise, you're looking at JB Bickerstaff in Cleveland. There's that narrative again because the Cavs have been so surprising. And then the coach of the Memphis Grizzlies, whose name is escaping me right now.
Taylor Jenkins.
Yep. I mean, those I think are your 3 guys with Monty Williams thrown in there for good measure and the Suns sitting in that 1 seed.
I think Taylor Jenkins would be if I had to vote, I would go Taylor Jenkins right now. But Monty Williams, how do you freaking go against what Monty Williams and Phoenix has done again this year? And he is the betting favorite right now, minus 163. JB Bickerstaff is 2nd, and then Billy Donovan's 3rd.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that Billy Donovan gets it over Monty Williams. That would be my pick, but both of those teams are going to, I think, have a little bit of a tough sled here during the last 20, 25 games down the stretch because of the injury issue. So we're really going to see if either of them can hold on to their perch where they are currently. I think that would seal the deal. And that's That's tough for Jenkins and Bickerstaff, who are more than deserving of what they've done too.
I mean, Memphis is a covering machine too. Like
Yeah.
when they win, they cover the spread. Like they win and they win convincingly. Like I don't know. I would give a lot to. There's a bad thing that happens in the NBA and a lot of sports. Like you're like, hey, I saw Phoenix do it last year. It can't be that good that they did it again this year.
Mm-hmm.
What's the fresh new thing here?
Yep.
And that sort of looks like how hot Memphis has been this season for the vast majority of what it seems like the last 3 months. They've been just a freaking a dynamo. But
before we revisit our conference finals and NBA finals picks to wrap up the show here, just in real rapid fire fashion, I'm going to run down the picks that we had for the division order, just so that we can compare how those picks fared against what we currently see. And in some cases, we did pretty well. In other cases, we probably should laugh ourselves out of the building because time and circumstance has not been kind to us. In the Atlantic, you and I picked the Nets first, Sixers, Celtics, Knicks, and Raptors in that order.
The Sixers are in first place right now.
Yep. Celtics are second, Raptors third, Nets are sitting in fourth, Knicks are sitting in fifth. We did have the Knicks making the playoffs in the 8th seed, and that's not showing very well right now.
Let's just not.
We'll move on. I said quick, rapid fire fashion. I'm just pointing out some of the discrepancies.
You can't blow 3 20-point leads in 7 games. Like, I don't understand.
God bless you, Tom Thibodeau, and God bless us, everyone.
And the Nets sucked at the time. They suck. Okay.
Yes. Central Division, we picked the Bucks, and then the Bulls, the Pacers in the middle, then the Pistons, then the Cavs. Yeah. Currently, it is Bulls, Cavaliers second with the Bucks behind them. That just blows my mind. Then the Pacers, then the Pistons.
Just 2.5 games though separates the Cavs and Bucks from first, so we may still be right there. Just like we got an outside shot of being right in the Atlantic.
In the Southeast, we were right with one glaring exception. We put the Hawks first in the division, then the Heat, then the Hornets, then the Wizards, then the Magic to round things out. Everything is exactly as we predicted, except that the Hawks are not in first. They are sitting third. Miami's in first in the division, then Charlotte, then Atlanta, then Washington, then Orlando. So, I mean, 4 out of 5 ain't bad, right?
Hawks are only 10 games back of the division. That's fine.
Yeah.
You win the division, you're in, so let's go.
Western Conference, I like how close we were and how close we still could be when we look at the Northwest Division, especially here. Northwest, we had the Nuggets winning the division with the Jazz behind them, then the Wolves, then the Blazers, then the Thunder. Right now, the Jazz are leading the division, but only 3 games on the Nuggets, who were kind of expecting a little bit of a surge. Jazz don't have Joe Ingles, though they did make some trades here at the deadline to try to bolster their chances. But Minnesota's sitting in third in the division, just like we predicted, with the Blazers behind them and the Thunder rounding out the field. And by the way, the Thunder have won 18 games on the season. That probably was about the total we would have expected for them to win the entire year. And they've been surprisingly competitive when they're not getting beat by 55 points.
Got a couple wins over the Lakers, too.
They do. Pacific Division, we had the Warriors, then the Lakers, then the Suns, then the Clippers, and the Kings. And flip-flop a couple of things, and, I mean, it looks in the right sort of... I mean, if you squint, you can see us in the right direction, except the Suns right now are running away in first. Then the Warriors, then you flip-flop the Clippers and the Lakers, with the Kings rounding things out, doing Sacramento things at the bottom.
How weird is it that the Warriors are, as far as the division is concerned, the second most games back of all the divisions? And
it is crazy, isn't it?
They're the second most. I think, what was it, the Hawks of the Southeast division is the only one where I think it's decided by more right now. But
especially because it was only 2 or 3 weeks ago that the Warriors were like 2 games back, 2.5 games back. You know, they had been neck and neck. They had played each other a handful of times. You know, like within the course of 10 days, they played 2 or 3 times. It was just a weird scheduling quirk. But yeah, Golden State kind of took their foot off the gas. They're 6-4 in their last 10. Suns are 9-1 in their last 10. And finally, the Southwest Division, we had the Grizzlies, and that was my big pick. That was my big surprise pick, was the Grizzlies winning the Southwest with Dallas behind them, then the Spurs, then the Pelicans, then the Rockets. Arky, Shea, we got that one 5 for 5, 100%.
That's pretty good. I may have said Grizzlies over or Grizzlies under the Mavericks at that point, but right now it's a 5.5 game difference, and listen, both teams are playing really well right now. So I'll be excited to see how that division ends up in the final 25 or 30 games.
In the conference finals, as we wrap things up over the last couple minutes here, we had the Brooklyn Nets and the Milwaukee Bucks facing off in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Doable, completely doable.
It's not out of the question if Durant comes back and Ben Simmons is not rusty and plays non-Ben Simmons playoff basketball, at least over the last playoff iteration that we saw of him, and Kyrie actually gets to show up. There are possibilities. And by the way, it was breaking today that Goran Dragic, who had been traded to the Spurs and then released by the Spurs, bought out, is going to sign with the Nets rather than with the Bucks, which, Goran, why are you doing that? The Nets have gotten so many freebies this year, and I know they need the help, but the Bucks would have actually been like the role for you, and Milwaukee needed him badly, and I wanted him to show up there because, of course, the Bucks had just traded Dante DiVincenzo to the Sacramento Kings at the deadline, and then Pat Connaughton gets hurt. They could have used a guy like Goran Dragic who can play either guard position to fill some of those minutes, and they did not get him. I'm not happy with that. But how do you like Nets and Bucks in the conference finals? Would you like to nominate someone else? Perhaps Miami, perhaps Philadelphia. Celtics all of a sudden look surprisingly competitive, both before the trade deadline and after it. Cleveland is sitting in the 4th seed.
I would nominate Philly. I think this James Harden thing is going to work.
Okay.
I think it's going to work really well for him.
So you want Philly instead of Milwaukee or instead of Brooklyn? Or do we have 3 teams facing off in the Eastern Conference Finals?
I do have 3 teams hanging out in the Eastern Conference. So
the old menage a trois in the...
Ooh, look at you. Yeah. See, Philly is what? They're 2.5 back. The Bucks are also 2.5 back. And then Brooklyn's 7 back. Who would be... Yeah, probably instead of the Nets. Yeah, probably. Yeah, instead of the... I think the good thing for Brooklyn, Kyrie's about to be able to play. Like they're going to. We're getting to the point where we're starting to roll back a lot of stuff around the country, and I think Kyrie's about to get to play a lot at home, which is weird, but which will be good because I think the majority of their remaining games are home games. I think so.
I mean, it's going to be an absolute slugfest in the Eastern Conference this year. Remember that right now the Brooklyn Nets are the 8th seed, so you would have an opening round of Nets and Heat if the Nets get out of the play-in tournament. And if I'm the Heat, I don't really want that in the first round. I'm going to go with Miami and Milwaukee in the conference finals because I do not believe, as much as I want Joel Embiid to win a championship, I am not a fan at all of that deadline trade for James Harden. You spoke very, very thoroughly last week about Harden's playoff problems that he's had. Neither of us liked the idea of getting rid of Seth Curry or Andre Drummond, who has been the perfect Joel Embiid insurance policy. I'm just not a fan of that. I think Chicago doesn't have the depth, although they probably will get Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso back by playoff time. Cleveland, unfortunately, being so young, they got to show us something in the playoffs before we pick them. I think Boston is better. Boston is good enough to maybe even win a playoff series, but the Celtics have been so inconsistent over the last couple of years. I'm not taking them. And the Nets, man, as much as we look at them on paper, and I'd love to be right, and Durant deserves an MVP, even though he's not going to get it, but he's clearly been the most valuable player to that team. The Nets just are so star-crossed this year, right? I mean, it's just been... You could not have written a better Spanish telenovela, right? With more plot twists and more backstabbing and more this and that over the last 2 seasons than what the Brooklyn Nets have given us. It's like all-time made-for-TV movie stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also, again, I'm just saying who I think will make the conference finals, not
Mm,
necessarily win the conference finals or win the championship. I don't know. There's something I don't fully buy into about Miami. Like they just, I don't know. Being tied for first right now is cute and nice. I don't know deep into the playoffs they got it in them. And Milwaukee got over that hump last year against
mhm.
them. I mean, I know they'll be hungry again for them this year.
Yep.
Will Miami be? But I don't know. Right now, I just sort of I don't completely buy Miami.
All right. So, Arky, Shea, you have two completely different teams than me. You've got Philly and Brooklyn in the conference finals. I've got Milwaukee and Miami. We'll revisit that when time comes. In the Western Conference, maybe things are a little simpler. We had originally chosen Denver and Golden State. Those were the number 1 and 2 teams, respectively, in our
Mm-hmm.
playoff picks to
Mm-hmm.
meet in the Western Conference finals. Of course, Denver not in first place right now.
Yet.
As we aforementioned, Phoenix Suns are there instead. Are we both in agreement that Golden State will be one of the 2 teams in the Western Conference finals and that the difficult part is just picking who their opponent will be?
Oh, for sure for me, yeah.
Okay. Who do you like playing against them? Does Denver actually redeem themselves and the faith that we gave them at the beginning of the year?
No, you know what's weird? Like this is a like stars. This is a stars league.
Mm-hmm.
Like stars win the championships, especially if you sort of put them together. The other 2 teams that I kind of liked, other than Phoenix, right now to be able to take that spot would be. I liked Dallas. I like a lot of Dallas. I really like what they can be, but Memphis is those dudes that they're not littered with the
Mm-hmm.
superstars, but they got one high level, elite level superstar that I think could get them to the finals against Golden State. And part of me worries what's going to be Chris Paul when he comes back,
Yep.
the rust, the age. I mean, this isn't his first injury or go around for it. Like he's come
Granted, it's
back.
only a thumb injury. It's not a leg injury, but
Yeah, but you play
mm-hmm.
basketball with your hands.
Yep.
So like he came in ceremoniously for in the All-Star game and had like a shot or something, but like that was for the fans. But like he was wrapped up pretty good. So in 2 months, what it'll be, I don't know. So I'll take a little bit of a flyer on Memphis right now. I'll go Memphis and Golden State, which would be a really fun conference finals.
I really like that Memphis pick. That's who I want to go with, but there's some things that need to happen, Arky Shea, for that to even be possible. Because right now, Golden State being in the 2nd seed and Memphis in the 3rd seed, they're going to meet in the semifinals, not in the conference finals, unless we get the standings mixed up here a little bit. That would mean Phoenix has to fall out of 1st, or Memphis has to fall down into 4th or 5th. One of those things or both of those things needs to happen to get them on opposite side of the bracket or the opposite side of the bracket. It's actually the same reason why, looking at it, my Miami and Milwaukee pick in the conference finals runs into some problem because the Bucks in the 5 seed right now, if that would stay, I think Milwaukee can beat Cleveland in the opening round, but you're going to see Miami next in the semifinals. And that makes things a little more difficult. It makes it more likely that we would see Philly, on the other side of the bracket. It would make it tough because the Nets, we would see them against the Heat in the opening round if things stay the same. But with 20-25 games, there's a lot that can happen here. I would love to see Golden State and Phoenix in the finals. I think if the Suns can get to the conference finals after having lost Chris Paul down the stretch here, and if they can hold on to pole position in the West, then as much as I love those other Coach of the Year candidates, then yeah, it is a Monty Williams thing. We got to give him all the love and give those young guys finally their respect to say, yes, this is a championship contender until proven otherwise. Because right now, there's a lot of us still going until proven otherwise, leading the sentence that way.
Yeah, and I think it's completely fair to say that even without Chris Paul, that Phoenix Suns team is still pretty stacked. Like they're still pretty darn good.
The chemistry just fits.
It
just
they
fits.
just work right now. They just work.
And they bolstered the bench just enough at the deadline to get a few more bodies in there. Torrey Craig has been a good system guy for them last year. Aaron Holiday fits to give kind of the same thing that Elfrid Payton does, which is like a defensive hounding point guard who, you're not going to run any type of offense through. It's going to be Devin Booker's show whenever that guy is on the floor. But You've got a different changeup pitcher in Campaign who can come in and be more of a scoring point guard if you need it. So there's a little bit of everything. The center rotation has been surprisingly game there, between DeAndre Ayton and JaVale McGee. Just huge hats off to what the Suns have been able to do. Jay Crowder, Mikal Bridges continue to hold down the forward spots. They don't look as dangerous on paper as they do when you get them out onto the court. And they've just been absolutely as good, if not better than advertised. So, we don't want to put down Phoenix here.
But if you're going to mention it, like, it's going to be a moot point to me.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to mention who we got in the finals still if we're going to keep it?
I'm taking Golden State and Memphis as well, thinking that things change with Phoenix and Denver in that order as like the next up candidates.
But yeah, I think it's all moot because I think who's coming out of the West, it's Golden State.
Golden State to the NBA Finals, and I will take Milwaukee to the NBA Finals again, but this Dragic stuff does not help my case. Connaughton should be back before the playoffs begin, but I'll go with the defending champs just because the East has been such a mess. Like you said, Miami's got some questions to answer. Philly, I'm not a fan of the Harden trade. I don't believe in Boston, Chicago, or Cleveland as credible threats, and Brooklyn just has an Eeyore-sized rain cloud hovering over everything they do all season.
Oh, boy.
That's the show, everybody.
Well, I'm just trying to do my best Eeyore. Okay.
All
right. Joel, say goodbye to the good people.
Goodbye, good people. Goodbye, Damon Stoudemire. Thanks for giving us episode 96 of Basketball by Association. Like, share, subscribe on YouTube. You can search us BBA or Basketball by Association. You can get the audio-only version, Spreaker, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. We will be back next week with actual games under our belt again, and I'm looking forward to the home stretch here of the NBA season.
Yeah,
bye, Arky.
Basketball took like a week off. Here we go. Goodbye.